Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 731 to 732 for the 24th to the 25th of February. We're going to start off with Frontline Changes report. And so I already covered some frontline changes through the Avdiivka and I think the other offensive, the Kharkiv one, the Robotini short report. So I'm not going to cover that again. And so I'm going to do the frontline change, the one that is over the past 24 hours. First thing first is actually Avdiivka Front. There is a major frontline change on top of what has already been reported previously through the quick updates. So the last update was around here. This was the change. And now the Russian forces have continued to make some push over Tonenke. Let me zoom in a bit. And they managed to advance further into the northern part of Tonenke and close up from the east. So given the speed of the advance, the Ukrainian forces most likely have been routed from the north. They have been run away. And now the entire Giverny-Tonenke twin village situation is now precarious because the Russians can attack from the rear and basically it will just secure the village, and the Ukrainian forces that who decided to remain is going to get wiped out or encircled. So I think this pretty marks the end of at least Giverny, and Tonenke will be pretty much next. So that's all from the Avdiivka front. The other frontline change is over at Ivanivske. So over the Bakhmut Front, this is Bakhmut city. In the north of Ivanivske, there's some frontline change. Deep State UA has caught up with Ryba's changes. So Ryba basically mapped all the way to this point. However, for Deep State UA, they acknowledge only up to the forest line around here, and they also drew this part and this area here as under Russian control. So which means that with corroboration, this advance in the north of Ivanivske is now confirmed from both sides. So if I zoom in a bit, it may not be very visible because there is so many layers. Then you can see this forest here is now under Russian control. There is nothing much over here. Probably there might be potentially entrenchment or two that is built up in this area here, but we can't tell. I don't have satellite imagery, so I can't really verify that information. So Ryba's mapping all the way until this point, of course, we still we still need more information to corroborate that. But in terms of this information, this is confirmed, which means the next move is going to be the next tree line around here, which is the northern outskirt of Ivanivske. So we will continue to monitor and see how this progress. And there is geolocations also confirming the attacks and whatnot, but it seems to be pretty dated despite the geolocation just came out. So we move away from the frontline changes report. So that's all from the frontline changes. The Russians have struck the Starokonstyantyniv air base. So there's this air base around here. This is a pretty famous one, Starokonstyantyniv. And the Russians launched the ground drones on this position. And according to the report from the Russian sources, they say that they hit the command and control center and also hit the parking lots of the Sukhoi 24M bombers. So not sure what kind of damage it is. The Sukhoi 24 is very precious because the Ukrainian forces uses these fighter bombers for launching cruise missiles. So we move on to the southern front. Over at the Kherson Front, there is still Ukrainian reports from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry about Russian attacks against Ukrainian beachheads or bridgeheads. So it's a bit unclear. So of what does this mean? Where is the fighting? No other sources are talking about this, so we can't really verify, which means that we also cannot verify if the Ukrainian forces are still at Kreminna. So we will continue to monitor and see how this progress. Other than that, on the wider scale, there is a airstrike on Chernobyivka. Chernobyivka is actually an airbase around here. There is some buildings around this area here. And this was previously struck for surface-to-air missile system, allegedly getting destroyed there. So the airstrike hits there again. So that's the geolocation there. the latest one, geolocated by military summary, was at this area here, south of Republikanet. Oh, I can't pronounce that. So this is also some bombardments. It looks like airstrike. It looks like artillery strike, but I think it's more like an airstrike. In the video footage, which I didn't share here, the river is actually very, very thin. It's not this thick. So, and it looks really muddy. So that's all from the Kherson Front. We move into the Zaporizhzhia Front. This is Zaporizhzhia city, and this is the Zaporizhzhia Front. Oh, not so long. This front, and this is the Huyai sector, the Kharkiv sector, and the Kupyansk sector. And there is over at the okay, so we just look at it on the strategic side. The Russian forces are attacking Huyai Shebaki. They are attacking Robotine as well as in the area of Verbove. So this is the situation, the strategic situation. The main push is over here. The Huyai and the Shebaki is most likely just probing attacks. I don't think these are significant ones. And also they also attack at Luhansk. So yeah, this is the one. And over at this the salient, the Ukrainian salient, there is a major changes. I did update on the quick update, but I will just go through it again. The Russian forces are attacking towards into Robotine. Then they are also pushing out from Verbove region. And based on the latest frontline changes report, the Russian forces have captured, at least based on Russian claims, the center of Robotine already, with geolocation of Russian attacks being recorded and posted in the social medias, and they basically storming the village. So, and Ukrainian forces did continue to try to counterattack over at Robotine. However, so far it seems to be to limited results. And then Ukrainian forces, out of desperation, has do remote mining. So basically use artillery to fire mines that will be scattered on the battlefield. They might in the northern part of Robotine, northern part of Novoprokopivka, as well as in the northwest of Verbove. So with this mining, means that the Russian forces will have problems quickly reinforcing the forces over at Robotine. They will have to go around from the west to reinforce Robotine, or from the east, which is all these areas are a bit more unsafe and there's no proper roads. And with this mining also means that the Russian forces cannot really push out quickly to chase the retreating Ukrainian forces if they are actually doing retreat. But based on the mining, it seems like they have abandoned Robotine entirely. And with this mining over on this eastern part also means that the Russian forces cannot quickly reinforce from the eastern part, because they would love to like this, because there's a road along here, and this road probably will now cannot be used until it was demined. So this also signifies there's a possibility that the Ukrainian forces has abandoned the entire area here. This entire salient may be abandoned, and this would be devastating if they are doing this, because this is actually the hard-won by the Ukrainians with a lot of equipment, a lot of lives, and it took a few months. And this is one of the major results from the Ukrainian counteroffensive. And if they lose this, then a lot of their progress will be lost, because the Russian lines started off here. This was where the line was in the beginning of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. And if they abandon all the way this part, which means that the Russians are basically almost back to where they were in the beginning of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. So this is why it matters. So, and I believe the Russians are very interested to pull off this PR victory. So again, the rest of the strategic situation is Huyai, Luhansk, and Shebaki, and this area here. And that's all from the Zaporizhzhia Front. We move on to the Donetsk Front. So this is the Donetsk Front. This is the Velikonovossyrka sector, the west of Voleda, the Voleda sector, as well as the Marinka sector. And in this in the strategic picture, the Russians are attacking Starokonstyantyniv. They are attacking at Donetsk towards Zolota Neva. Ukrainians counterattack at Shevchenko. Russians attack Voleda. They are attacking. They are storming Novomihailivka, attacking at Boyeda region, at Georgievka, as well as Krasnohorivka. Ukrainians counterattack at Krasnohorivka. So this is the strategic situation over at the Donetsk front. In all this front line, I think interesting is the one over at this sector over here. Other than the push at Starokonstyantyniv, I think it's pretty usual. There's nothing very special about this. The Russians are continuing their push towards Zolota Neva, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Previously, there was a 20 to 21st attack, and then there was a 24th attack. So, and then there is this push at Novodonetsk. The Russians actually reported a counterattack from the Ukrainians in this area here. So this is very interesting. There might be an escalation of the Russians trying to expand their zone of control in this area here. Given the escalation, there was a previous geolocated attack from this direction in the western part of Novodonetsk. We'll continue to monitor and see how this develops. And the attack over at Voleda, I think it's just a fire attack. It's just a tactical one, and there is geolocation of airstrikes reported over at Voleda. So, and the video footage come out also see the devastation of the city. Voleda is basically totally devastated. The buildings are still largely standing, but it's all full of holes. It looks extremely unsafe to stay in. Definitely, I do not recommend anyone to save. It's really bad for health, and it's very dirty. All the sweepers are very lazy. They never go and clean the city, so it's very disappointing. Why do we pay tax? Oh, I'm not Ukrainian, so I didn't pay the tax. Anyway, we're moving on to, over at the Marinka sector. The Russian forces seems to be making some major push over at Krasnohorivka. This is the latest hype on the Russian media space, the Russian information space. However, it's not informed on my trusted channels of sources. So I'm not going to talk too much about this. The Ukrainians do counterattack over at this area here. Russians still continue to be pushing at Georgievka, but it seems to be a lot lesser in intensity. Fighting is still being reported at Boyeda. Despite the Russians seems to have captured Boyeda, the fighting is still in the region, and the Russians are storming Novomihailivka, but the intensity of the fighting seems to be a lot lower. So we will continue to monitor and see what the hell is happening, because things it's not a little bit unclear over this area here, particularly over Krasnohorivka. All this hype is very, very weird. And so the FPV drone attack over at this point of the Georgievka also confirms the front line actually did not really change. The Ukrainians are still holding the line over at Georgievka. So yeah, it's a very weird situation. Just off the Donetsk front, there is a MiG-29 shot down over Yasinove, the Ukrainian MiG-29. Another MiG-29 was shot down nearby over at Selidove. Given the proximity, these two MiG-29s might be flying as a formation together, and so one got shot down while the other one was turning. It got shot down also. So probably what is happening is that the plane was flying in this direction, firing their payload towards the front line. One got hit. One got hit immediately. And then another one, while it's turning, it got hit again. Another one got hit again. So they are unable to return to base. So because usually Ukraine and Russia both fly in the Soviet style two-plane formation, whereas over in the West they fly in 3 or 4. So it's a bit different. And and then there is another interesting video that came out from the Russian side. There is a claimed Patriot system over in the west of Zaporizhzhia, over at Pokrov region, and so the video shows some explosion and some claims that of a surface air missile system. They basically circle it and say that these are Patriots, and so this is a very weird video. So it's unclear. We can't really see from the video. The explosion was over at Horikove. in a very obscure town village on the edge of the Donetsk Oblast. And if we do take some kind of distance from this position all the way to the Black Sea, is below 200 kilometers. I believe this is a possible launch sites for the Patriot missiles that kill so many of the planes. So this could be one of them. This is already the second. This could actually be the claim that the Russian Defense Ministry made, because the Russian Defense Ministry said that they destroyed a Patriot system. Maybe this is the video of that strike. So this is just one. So there is only one Patriot that is being claimed to be destroyed from the Russian Defense Ministry. So this could be the actual video of that attack. So I can't verify it. I'm just corroborating the information over here. Over at the Avdiivka Front, this is Avdiivka city. At the Avdiivka Front, the Russian forces are continuing their Avdiivka offensive with fighting reported at Badaichi, Stepove, Lashtoshkine, Tonenke, Shevene, Pervomaiske, and Nevelske, with Ukrainian forces attacking at Novobakhmutivka and Pervomaiske as well as Lashtoshkine. The general picture, this is a strategic situation. There's not much to talk about over at the flanks. The main thing is coming in the center. As the center is the weak point, I believe I'm not sure which video I did mention that the center is where the weakness is, and that's where the Russians should penetrate through and would penetrate through. And indeed, I'm turned out to be correct. The Russian forces continue to exploit the weakness of the lines around here, because this is where the Ukrainians do not have a firm line of defense, and they are now attacking into the north of Tonenke. Over here, the Russian forces are also continuing to try to conquer Shevene to no avail, because there is some kind of a strong defense on the Ukrainian side in the northern part of Shevene. So the claims of the conquest of Shevene still is not corroborated by both my trusted sources, Ryba or Deep State UA. However, there is reports of Russian forces attacking Tonenke, according to the information from the Russian Defense Ministry. I'm not sure if they are referring to an attack from the south or from the north, so we'll continue to monitor. Lashtoshkine has been captured over on the 24th of February. So this is already very well known. I did report this on my quick update. And there is also geolocation of the Russian flag flying in the eastern part of Lashtoshkine. So it is only on the eastern part, but based on the information coming from Deep State UA, the Russians have already progressed way past that. And this progress over on this area here on the western part of the coke plant. This area here is stuck. The Ukrainians are putting a strong defense around here. However, now further south along the main road via Lashtoshkine, the Russians could make a major push towards Avdiivka. So this is disastrous, because the Russians are already on the verge of encircling or hitting the rear, or forcing a Ukrainian withdrawal from Tonenke and Lashtoshkine. And it just looks bad. The Russian forces can also push to the south of Avdiivka, hit up north, also hitting the rear of Avdiivka, and they could also cut off the retreat route at Tonenke, forcing Ukrainians to go west along the dirt roads. So the strategic situation here is just horrible, very horrible for the Ukrainian forces. And it's not a matter of bad strategy. I would say the Ukrainian tactics and strategy in trying to hold the line of defense is not wrong, but the problem is that the Russians are pushing through an area where they have no heavy entrenchment. And the lack of a heavy entrenchment in this area here, because they never expect the Russians to push through the center, capturing Avdiivka city this way. So when the attack coming through the center, they have nothing there. And this is a soft spot. So there is very little the Ukrainians can do. The most important thing the Ukrainians could do right now is quickly start a new line of defense, quickly dig right now. They have to dig, fortify right now. The problem is logistic. I'm not sure if the Ukrainians have the heavy equipment, the machineries to do all this entrenchment. Do they have the reinforcement manpower to man all this new entrenchment if they could? Because if they don't do this, the Russians are going to continue to make new penetrations, and they're going to hit all the way to the rear, collapsing the entire front line that is actually well defended. So all these lines around here is all well defended, all strong lines. And this is the weak spot where the Russians can continue to make push. And if they do not form a new line of defense that is strong, then this push is going to turn into a massive rout. Yeah, then the next heavy line of defense is over here. This is the next heavy line of defense. This is pre-war built, so these are good ones. However, these are not connected. These are all individual strongholds. So it could be, which means that they could be go around. The Russians can actually go around them. So anyway, we will continue to monitor and see the situation over at Avdiivka and see how this progress. And over at the New York Front, Ukrainian forces launched counterattack over at Pivdene and New York. Probably, again, is trying to do diversions, but it did not work the previous time. I don't think it will work this time. So we will continue to monitor over this New York Front. And we move on to the Bakhmut Front. So this is Bakhmut city, and we cut the Bakhmut Front usually into half, the southern and the northern flank. In the southern flank, the Russian forces continue their offensive operations in this area here. A bit is a very positional and slow one. Attack towards Klishchiivka, Andriivka, and Kudyumivka. There is also a report from the Russian Defense Ministry about attack at Dilievka. So there could be a possibility that the Russians are pushing from the southwest of Kudyumivka towards Dilievka. So this would signify a new vector of attack that was previously not seen for a long time. That the Russians attack in this direction. So we will continue to monitor. So the last attack that was mentioned at Dilievka was in December, 1st of December. And if you look at some of these nearby ones, like at Ozerianivka, the last attack was reported in October. So this vector of attack is very, very new. It's very, very new. We didn't see this for a long, long time. So, and if this turned out to be a breakthrough, oh my God, the Ukrainians are going to have a big problem, and the Russians are going to have a field day, because if you push in this direction and along the canal and just break out from this area here, the entire line here is going to collapse. And this line is a good line. It's a very, very good line. The Ukrainians have held this position for months very successfully after they recaptured this from the Wagner forces, because the Wagner forces captured it and then they gave it to the Russians. But it's a shit position. It's a very lousy strategic position. It's very hard to defend. The Russians gave it up because it's just hard to defend. They give it up. The Ukrainians held it, and now it could just be totally ignored by the Russian forces if they make the push in this way. So we shall wait and see. Further away, the Russians strike the Konstantinov train station with missile attacks. So the train station got hit. So not sure what was hit. Supposedly the video was seen to have pretty big explosions. In the northern flank, so this is the northern flank of the Bakhmut Front. Russian forces are attacking over at Bodanivka region, in the north of Bodanivka as well as Ivanivske. And the front line change from the Deep State UA, as I mentioned earlier, has suggested that the Russians have made progress in the north, corroborating Russian claims. So they are a bit slow, 2-3 days behind of the Russian claims. However, it is okay, it's corroboration, so that's very, very good. A lot of geolocations of Russian forces attacking Ukrainian positions, Ukrainians getting attacked and getting hit within this by what? This by multiple launch rocket system by Grad, I believe, and then the Ukrainian attack in the rear by artillery systems in the rear position. So it does shows the intensity of the fighting in this area here through the number of geolocation in this area here. I think the main focus, it wouldn't be Bodanivka. It wouldn't be this push. Okay, let me use another color. It won't be Bodanivka. The Russians are not going to push to Chasivya just yet. Not yet, because it's not tactically viable. I think the main focus is going to be Ivanivske. And this is where the Russians are, as I mentioned before, they are going to try to close up the northern flank as well as the northeastern flank. They are now already closed up on the eastern part. So this area here has already been closed up. The Russians have entered the city. The battle of Ivanivske is already ongoing, but it will not go into a very heavy battle. The Russians are not going to make a big push until they can actually secure the northern side as well as the northeastern side. Once they can do this, then they will be able to attack from multiple directions, include even from the south. And with this attack, with this envelopment, the Ukrainian forces will be squeezed out of Ivanivske like a toothpaste, and they will have to enter into the forest for refuge. So this is probably what we are going to be looking at over the next week or two over at Ivanivske. And we move on. That's all from the Bakhmut Front. We move into the Seversk Front. There's no reports of anything over the Seversk. We move into the Kreminna Front. Kreminna Front continue the trend of winding down, getting less and less intense or fighting. Fighting is only being reported over at Tonenke, and this information coming from the Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 24th and 25th, which means that the attack is most likely only on the 24th. That means there's nothing much on the 25th. Kreminna Front is now going quiet. Going quiet is not necessarily always a good thing, because it could actually mean a regrouping of the Russian forces. So we shall see how this progress. And further up north, there's nothing over the Zaporizhzhia Front. We move into the Kupyansk Front. So this is Kupyansk city, and this is the Kupyansk Front. The Russian forces are attacking over at Avdiivka, according to the latest report from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The Ukrainians are attacking Sinkivka and Liman Pershi in the Sinkovka train station region. So the Ukrainians are focusing in this area here. I'm not sure is it meaningful for the Ukrainians to invest more in that area here. It could be just a Russian ploy to keep resources stuck in that area over there. So in terms of the strategic situation, I'm really not so clear. What's the meaning of Ukrainians continue to make investment into attacking the Russian forces in this area here, rather than hold a defensive position? So they continue to push, and the Russians are gladly absorb the attack. Though they gladly absorb the attack. So it's just unclear what's the point in the long run, because let's say if the Ukrainians capture Liman Pershi, then you're still going to have to fight for Avdiivka, because this is all forest region. Russian forces can basically encircle them or attack from multiple directions. If you push out into Vyshena, yeah, in a wide open area, Russian airstrikes can hit them in a lot of places. And even if you capture this area here, there is still a lot more grounds that you need to consider. Do you have the manpower to actually take? And currently, the Ukrainians do not have the capacity to do massive offensive operations right now. There is a lot of indication to show that they do not have enough to pull off another the last year's counteroffensive scale of attack. So anyway, they have to fight. I understand they have no choice. So we shall see how this goes. And we move on to the Kharkiv Front. At the Kharkiv Front, there is only one instance. There is a shelling report by the Russian Defense Ministry. In their Kupyansk direction report, it's a bit weird. They say that they attacked Tonenke. However, they also mentioned about hitting a concentration of forces over at this location called Prikolotnoye. And in the Ukrainian is Prikolone. So yeah, so this could be an attack on the train station, because there is a train station over here. So this could be a deployment point for the Ukrainian forces, because this is actually also happen to be a hub. You can see the highway leading into this area here, and then it branches out in two different directions. So the Russians basically strike this area here. So this is a very unusual, out of the normal report. So we will continue to monitor and see how this progress. And that's it. This is the summary for the day of 731 to 732 for the 24th to 25th of February. And so some conclusions. So the Russian forces are making a lot of headways in multiple fronts, particularly over at the Kharkiv sector of the Zaporizhzhia Front. I think the Russians are going to, within a week or two, capture the entire of the salient, because based on the mining if this mining operation, the remote mining is true, Ukrainians are giving up the salient, and which means that the Russians are going to be pretty much back to the initial line. This is where the initial line is when the Ukrainians started their counter-offensive operation. So no, it is, yeah, there is going to be a huge PR coup for the Russian side if they manage to do this. And the Russians are also not letting up with probing attacks at Huaypole, Avdiivka and Shabaki. Sometimes they attack at Kherson, sometimes at Petikaki. So no, and then sometimes they attack over at the Nestyanka region or towards Novodenilivka. So and also of course sometimes they also attack at Malatamashka region. So all these probing attacks is just pulling Ukrainians apart in multiple directions, and forcing them to not able to focus on just this one front line. And of course I think the situation over at the Donetsk Front is pretty much pro-beach. But again, I always mention Zorta Neva as the weak spot. The Russian push in this direction is going to be devastating for the Ukrainians. And this front line here is very slow, tentatively. The rumors about the fighting at Krasnohorivka, I will still need time to look at my sources to see whether they have anything up for me to report on that. Avdiivka is going to be doomed. Ukrainian forces' strong defense lines is here. There is a break in this area here where the Russians can make this massive push. And given the speed of the front line change, over 2 days, we are talking about this much change. This entire area, even zoom out this much, we can see it, means this line has collapsed. The Ukrainian forces over this area here is getting routed. And if this routing continues, it will turn into a massive rout, which means you're going to look a lot like the Kharkiv offensive situation, where the Russians, not Kharkiv, in our reporting, we call it the Balaklia offensive, where the Ukrainians routed the Russian forces and pushed them all the way towards the eastern part of Oskil River. This could have similar visuals to that. The next heavy Ukrainian line of defense is over here. I use this one. This is the next heavy line of defense. And these fortresses icon, these are all individual entrenchments. They are unlinked. They are not one line of defense like the Surovikin line. So these are all individual strongholds, which may or may not help in terms of holding back the Russians, because the Russians could basically penetrate through the center. They can rain TOS-1A, the thermobaric missiles, while they're pushing through. So it's hard to tell. But of course, with the experience from looking at Robotine, it could be useful, because there is a heavy entrenchment south of Robotine that actually works pretty decently for the Ukrainians, although it has already fallen to the Russians right now. So we will continue to monitor, but this breakthrough seems imminent. We will definitely have to take our, put our focus and in this area here, to really take note of this situation over here, because once it breaks, the Russians basically can, let me go back to the last one. They basically can push into the rear positions and basically collapse the entire front line. This is the fear for the Ukrainians, in this area here. So we move on. New York, Ukrainian attacks at New York can be ignored. I don't think it's meaningful. The Russians attack over at the Bakhmut Front. Main thing is Kayamske. The Battle of Kayamske is going to start to heat up really, really strongly. And this attack towards Avdiivka is interesting. Definitely this one is one to watch as well. If this continues to persist, then I think we might see another interesting strategic move from the Russians to basically collapse the entire front line that is actually very established. But we shall wait and see, because the Russians may not always do what I think they do. And the interesting thing is the Kreminna and the Zaporizhzhia Front have went quiet. The entire front line is getting quieter and quieter over this area here, with the only attack at Terny, which feels more and more half-hearted. We shall see. Zaporizhzhia is now a dead front, And Kupyansk Front continues to be this scam. The Ukrainians continue to try to push at Sinkivka for no reasons. The front line never changes over there. And the Russians push at Avdiivka might actually just be a false alarm. The Russians are maybe not really making a serious push. However, the Ukrainians did mention multiple attacks over at the Avdiivka region. So it could just purely be Russians trying to secure the boundaries around Avdiivka. The entire attempt to push for Pishane did not turn out. Maybe the Ukrainians did indeed send enough reinforcement into this area here, which discouraged the Russians from trying. So that could be what happened. And so that's all. This is the conclusions. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next update.